Desperation.
Hi, sir. My mother has a pendant just like yours. What happened? The kingdom of Eldoria was a land of twilight.
Even in the middle of the day, shadows stretched across the cobbled streets, and the forests whispered secrets that few dared to hear. Villagers spoke of the Lycan king, Kale, in hushed tones. Some called him a savior, others a monster. Desperate. No one had seen him up close for many years, and his fortress sat high atop the cliffs, hidden in mists and moonlight. Yet he was always present, like a shadow in the hearts of those below.
Kale had ruled in solitude for centuries. His bloodline was cursed, a legacy that had brought him power but also unbearable loneliness.
At night when the moon rose, he could feel the wolf within him stir, wild and restless. He walked through his forest alone, listening to the whispers of the leaves, the distant calls of creatures that lurked just beyond sight. He did not seek company. He did not seek friendship. He had long given up hope for anything resembling love. And yet, that night, something changed. A small figure appeared among the silver beams of moonlight. A girl, no older than 8, with wide, curious eyes and a small bundle clutched to her chest. She stepped carefully along the forest path, as if she had been told stories of monsters but had chosen to ignore them. When she saw Kael, her expression did not change to fear. Instead, she smiled. "Hi, sir," she said. Her voice was soft, yet it carried across the still night like a bell. "My mother has a pendant just like yours." Kael froze. The sound of her words was like ice sliding down his spine. His eyes, sharp and golden in the moonlight, narrowed as he looked at the girl. The pendant she spoke of, the one he had not seen in decades, was tied to memories he had tried to bury. A woman he had once loved, a betrayal that had left him cursed and alone. How could a child, innocent and small, know about it? The forest seemed to grow quieter. Even the night creatures held their breath as Kale stepped closer. He towered over the girl, his long cloak brushing the forest floor, his presence overwhelming. And yet, there was something in her gaze, a fearless curiosity, that made him pause.
Where did you see it? Kale asked, his voice low, almost a growl that seemed to vibrate in the trees. My mother wears it every day, the girl replied.
She says it's very special, and I wanted to see yours because it looks the same. She held her small hands out, showing him a simple silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. It glimmered faintly in the moonlight, just as his did. Kale's hand twitched. Memories surged unbidden. He remembered Mira, her laugh, the way she had once worn a similar pendant, the warmth of her hand in his. And then the betrayal, the curse. But the loneliness. He had vowed never to let anyone close again, never to feel that ache of loss so deeply. Yet here was this small girl, innocent and unknowing, staring up at him with trust and curiosity. His heart, so long hidden behind centuries of sorrow, stirred. "Why are you here, child?" he asked. His voice was softer now, but still carried the weight of command. "I wanted to see you," she said simply. "Everyone says you are scary." But I wanted to see you for myself. Kale's golden eyes softened. The child did not know the danger of the forest, the danger of him. She did not know that the king she called scary was bound by a curse so old and heavy it had shaped the very earth beneath him. And yet, there was a light in her courage, a spark of innocence that reminded him of what he had lost. You should not wander here alone, Kale said, though the words were almost meaningless. She had already walked the path. She had already come to him. Inspiration.
I can take care of myself, she said.
But I wanted to know, why do you have the same pendant as my mother? Kale's throat tightened. The pendant was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a key to the past, a connection to magic long forgotten, and a reminder of love lost. He had tried to hide it, even from himself, but now, in the hands of this small child, it became impossible to ignore. It has a story, Kale said slowly. A story that is not easy to hear. I like stories, the girl said. Can you tell me yours? Kale looked down at her. Her dark eyes, full of curiosity and innocence, pierced through his defenses. And for the first time in centuries, he felt the ache of longing, not for power, not for victory, but for connection, for trust, for something human. Inspiration. He knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to her level. The forest around them seemed to lean in, listening, waiting. Long ago, he began, there was a queen who wore a pendant like yours. She was the light in my life. Inspiration. But the world was cruel, and I failed her. I lost her. And with her, I lost myself. The pendant is all that remains of what we had.
The girl's hands tightened around her own pendant.
My mother says that pendants hold memories, she said softly. Maybe yours wants to remember too.
Kale's chest tightened.
The child's words, so simple and pure, cut deeper than any sword. She did not know the danger she was in, and yet she spoke truth without fear. It was maddening. It was beautiful. Perhaps, Kale murmured, almost to himself. Perhaps that is so. For a moment, the forest was silent. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of moss and earth, and Kale felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him. He had ruled with fear, with distance, with strength that kept everyone away. And yet here was this child offering a fragile bridge back to something he had long thought lost. You are brave, he said finally, but you must leave soon. It is not safe here. The girl shook her head. I'm not afraid. Not really, and I want to see the story through. Kale's lips pressed together. He wanted to tell her no.
He wanted to push her away, to return to his solitude and the safety of shadows. But he could not.
Something in her gaze, a mixture of innocence and determination, held him fast. He felt a pull he had not felt in centuries, a tug of hope and fear intertwined. Very well, he said at last. You may come a little further, but you must stay close. The girl's face lit up with a smile, and Kale felt a strange warmth bloom in his chest. They walked deeper into the forest, the moonlight casting silver patterns on the path, the trees arching overhead like silent sentinels. Kale kept his senses alert, his wolf within restless and wary. Yet even as he prepared for danger, he could not ignore the strange comfort he felt in her presence. As they reached a small clearing, Kale stopped. The moonlight fell directly upon a stone circle, ancient and worn. It was a place of power, tied to the old magic of Eldoria. Kale had not stepped here for decades. And now, with the child at his side, he felt the stirrings of something old and dangerous, something that might change everything. The girl stepped forward, curiosity shining in her eyes. Is this part of your story?
Kale did not answer immediately. He sensed it before he saw it, a faint shimmer in the air, a ripple of magic tied to the pendant.
Breath. His own pendant pulsed faintly against his chest, resonating with hers. The air grew thick, heavy with unseen energy, and Kale's wolf within growled low in his throat. "You should not touch it," he said, though the words felt hollow. He knew it would be impossible to keep her from the pull of the magic. Inspiration. Some things are dangerous, even for those who mean no harm. Inspiration. The girl tilted her head. "I'm not afraid of stories, and I'm not afraid of magic."
I just want to know why it matters. Kale felt the ache again, the longing that had haunted him for centuries.
The child's words were a mirror of his own past, a reflection of the trust he had once held and lost. He wanted to protect her, to guide her, and yet he feared the darkness that always followed him. Before he could speak again, a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing. Something unseen, but powerful, stirred among the trees. Kale's golden eyes flared, his wolf senses alert, his body tensing. The forest seemed to hold its breath. "Stay close," he warned, his voice low and commanding. The girl nodded, gripping her pendant tightly. Kale felt a strange hope and fear mingled together. The past and present were colliding, the pendant's magic pulsing stronger, and something told him that the night was far from over. He did not yet know the danger approaching, or the truth that the pendant would reveal. But one thing was certain. The story had only just begun. And whatever came next, Kale knew it would change everything. For the kingdom, for the girl, and for himself. As the wind whispered through the trees and the moonlight shimmered across the clearing, Kale felt an old, long-forgotten emotion stir. Something he had buried deep under centuries of sorrow and solitude. Something fragile, yet powerful. Something called hope. And then, from the shadows, a faint rustle. Something was coming. Kale's hand moved instinctively to the hilt of his sword, his senses blazing. The girl clutched her pendant, wide-eyed. The air was thick with tension, with magic, with the weight of secrets long kept. And in that moment, Kale knew the night was far from ordinary, and nothing would ever be the same again. The forest seemed alive that night. The wind whispered through the trees as if warning of unseen dangers, and the moon hung heavy in the sky, bathing the clearing in silver light. Kale's golden eyes scanned the shadows, alert to every sound. The girl, Elara, clutched her pendant, wide-eyed but unafraid, as if she could feel the same strange pull he did. Kale stepped forward, placing himself slightly between her and the darkness. His wolf senses flared, though he did not fully shift into his beast form. Centuries of solitude had taught him restraint. He had learned that showing fear could mean vulnerability, and vulnerability could be deadly in a world of curses and power-hungry rulers. Desperation. Yet the moment Elara looked up at him, a strange warmth and longing stirred inside his chest, something he thought he had buried long ago.
"Stay close," he repeated, his voice low and commanding.
He had not said it like this in years. His words carried both warning and care. "I will," Elara said softly, her eyes bright with curiosity. "I want to see everything. I want to know why the pendant matters." Kale studied her. The resemblance to her mother Mira was striking. Even at this young age, she carried the same fire in her eyes, the same quiet determination, the same courage he had once loved in Mira. The thought pierced him with both longing and pain. He had loved once and had lost, and he had vowed never to feel that ache again. And yet, here was the child, innocent, fearless, and unaware of the danger that lurked in her very bloodline. He led her deeper into the forest, toward the old stone circle he had discovered earlier. Spirit, the air grew colder, heavy with a magic he had not felt in decades. The stones were covered in moss and lichen, but they radiated a faint energy that made the hair on Cale's arms stand on end. He could feel it in his chest, the same pulse he felt from the pendant around his neck.
This place, Cale began, was built by those who knew magic long before my time.
Inspiration. It is a place of power and of danger.
Alara stepped closer to the circle, glancing at the stones.
Brett.
Does the pendant talk to it? She asked. Or does it just...
Feel it? Cale frowned, unsure how to explain the truth without frightening her.
It responds, he said carefully. The pendant carries memories and power.
Great. It can remind us of the past, even of people who are no longer with us. But power without caution can be very dangerous. Alara nodded slowly, as if she understood more than she should. Her small fingers brushed the silver crescent around her neck. Cale felt a shiver of recognition. The pendant was a key to her mother's story, and perhaps to his own. Before he could say more, the wind shifted. A shadow moved in the trees at the edge of the clearing. Inspiration. Cale froze. His wolf senses screamed danger. Inspiration. This was no ordinary predator of the forest. It was something intelligent, deliberate. Something that had come for the pendant. Or perhaps for him. Behind us, Cale whispered, his eyes narrowing. Inspiration. Alara turned, and Cale could see the fear flicker in her gaze.
But she did not panic.
She simply stepped closer to him, trusting him to protect her. Cale's chest tightened. He had long forgotten what it was to feel protective in a way that mattered, and yet here it was, raw and urgent. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man dressed in dark, flowing robes, his face hidden under a hood. Inspiration. Magic hummed faintly around him, a cold, unnatural energy that made the air grow thick. Cale instinctively stepped in front of Alara, his hand brushing the hilt of his sword. You should not be here, Cale said, his voice low and dangerous. This is not a place for the living to wander. The figure laughed softly, a sound like dry leaves cracking. The living? He said. Ah, Lycan King, still bound by your pride and your foolish sense of justice. Inspiration. You cannot hide what is already yours to lose.
Cale's eyes flared.
He knew this man, though he could not have seen him in years. Inspiration. A shadow from the past, a corrupted ruler who had once sought the same pendant for power. Cale had defeated him long ago, but now it seemed he had returned. And he had come for the child.
You will not touch her, Cale growled, his wolf senses pushing closer to the surface.
He did not yet transform fully, but the low rumble in his throat warned the intruder that he was not to be trifled with. The figure stepped closer, revealing a glimpse of a pale, sharp-featured face beneath the hood. She carries what you left behind, the man said, his eyes glinting with greed. The pendant, the power, the bloodline. I want it all. Cale's grip tightened on his sword. He felt the old rage stir within him, the same fire that had burned when he lost Mira, when he lost everything he had loved. But now he had something to protect. Apparition. Something living and innocent. Something that reminded him that he could still do right by the past.
You will not harm her, Cale said again, his voice like steel.
The intruder smiled cruelly and raised a hand, summoning dark energy that twisted and warped the air. Shadows stretched toward the clearing like living fingers. Brr. Kale's eyes glowed golden as he instinctively stepped forward, planting himself between the girl and the advancing threat. Elara, he said urgently. Stay behind me. Do not move. Do not look away, she nodded, gripping her pendant. Inspiration. Kale felt the warmth of hers resonate with his own. The magic hummed, responding to their combined presence. The child had more power than she realized, a connection to the past and to the curse that bound him. The intruder hissed, sending a bolt of dark energy toward them. Brrr. Kale reacted instantly, slashing the air with his sword. The energy shattered against the blade, sparks flying, and the intruder laughed, circling like a predator. Ah! 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 Brr. Kale could feel the wolf within him grow restless, clawing to break free. But he restrained it, knowing that losing control could endanger Elara.
Your time is past, Kale, the intruder said.
Inspiration. The past always catches up. The bloodline always answers. Kale's mind raced. Inspiration. He realized that the pendant was more than a memory. It was a key, a beacon for those who sought its power. And now, the past was not just a memory. It was alive, and it had come for them both. You do not understand, Kale said, his voice low, almost a growl. Boh. I will not let you take her. Not now. Not ever. The intruder laughed again, stepping back into the shadows. We will see, Lycan King. The night is long, and the world always demands its due.
And with that he vanished, leaving the forest trembling in his wake.
Kale lowered his sword slowly, his heart pounding. He turned to Elara, who looked at him with wide eyes. Brr. She did not speak, but her small hands clutched her pendant tightly. It is not safe here, Kale said, his voice softer now, almost tender. Brr. The forest, it hides many things. Some of them are not kind.
Elara nodded, but she did not look afraid.
Brr. Instead, she looked determined. Then I want to help, she said.
I want to know how. I want to help you. Kale felt a pang of both fear and hope.
How could a child help him against powers he had struggled with for centuries? And yet her courage reminded him of something he had long forgotten. Trust, connection, and the possibility of redemption. You are brave, Kale said, his voice breaking slightly, but bravery is not enough.
There are dangers you cannot see, and magic you cannot understand.
Elara stepped closer, tilting her head. Maybe I cannot see it all, but I can learn.
I want to learn. I want to be part of your story.
Kale's chest tightened. She spoke with the same fire Mira had once held, the same spark that had made him fall in love and ultimately suffer loss.
But unlike Mira, Elara was innocent, unscarred by betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, she could help him find a way to heal old wounds. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silver light on the clearing. Kale felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him, yet also a strange lightness. The child's presence, her trust, her courage, they were like threads weaving him back to life. For the first time in centuries, he felt something resembling hope. And yet, the intruder's words lingered in the air. The past always catches up. The bloodline always answers. Kale knew he could not ignore them. There were forces at work far greater than he had imagined, and the pendant, Elara's and his own, was at the center of it all. He had to prepare not just for the intruder, but for the storm of destiny that was approaching. Elara, he said, his voice gentle but firm. We will leave this place soon.
You must stay close and you must listen to me. Everything depends on it.
She nodded, her small hand brushing against his. Cale felt a shiver run down his spine. Shh.
There was a connection between them now, something that could not be broken by fear or distance. It was fragile, yes, but it was real. The forest was quiet again, but Cale could feel the tension lingering in the air, like a storm waiting just beyond the trees. Something had been awakened tonight, something tied to the pendant, to the past, and to the destiny that now bound them together. And Cale knew that the night was far from over. The wind shifted, carrying with the faintest whisper of movement, silent, almost imperceptible. Cale's eyes narrowed. Something, or someone, was watching. Waiting. The danger had not passed. It had only begun. He tightened his grip on his sword and glanced at Elara, who clutched her pendant tightly. The glow of the moon reflected in their eyes, and Cale realized that they were standing on the edge of a story much larger than either of them could yet understand. And in that moment, a shiver ran through the forest. And Cale knew that the shadow from the past would not rest until it had claimed what it sought. The forest held its breath, and the night waited for what was coming next. The night had grown darker, and the forest seemed to close in around Cale and Elara. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying the scent of earth and wildflowers, but underneath it lingered something sharper, colder. Cale's senses were on high alert. Every rustle, every crack of a twig made his heart race. He could feel the wolf within him stirring, restless, ready to pounce, but he did not let it take control. Not yet. Elara clutched her pendant tightly, its silver crescent reflecting the pale light of the moon. She had not spoken since the encounter with the intruder, but Cale could feel her fear and determination. She wanted to understand, to help, and he could not bring himself to stop her. We need to move, Cale said, his voice low and steady. The forest is no longer safe. Something or someone is following us. Elara nodded. I can keep up, she said. I'm not afraid. Cale glanced at her, golden eyes softening for a moment. She reminded him so much of her mother, Mira. The same courage, the same fire. But unlike Mira, she was innocent, unscarred by the betrayals of the past. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the danger he knew was coming, yet he could not keep her from this path. Something told him that she had a role to play in the story that was unfolding. The forest path twisted and turned, leading them toward a hidden clearing Cale had discovered long ago. It was a place of old magic, where the veil between the living world and the unseen had always been thin. Cale had never brought anyone here, not even Mira, and now with Elara by his side, he felt a mix of fear and hope he had not known in centuries. As they entered the clearing, Cale stopped suddenly. The air was heavy, charged with energy that made the hair on his arms stand on end. The stones in the circle glowed faintly, as if sensing their presence. He felt the pendant against his chest pulse in rhythm with Elara's, a connection that was both comforting and dangerous. Elara, Cale said softly, do you feel it? She nodded. It's like it's alive. Like it wants to tell us something. Cale's jaw tightened. The pendant was more than a memory. It was a key, a guide, and a warning. And now, in Ilara's hands, it had begun to awaken. He had long feared this moment. The magic of the pendant was powerful, tied to bloodlines, destiny, and curses that had lasted centuries. If it fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could be terrible. Before he could speak further, a ripple of shadow appeared at the edge of the clearing. Kale's body tensed. The intruder had returned, and he was not alone. Figures emerged from the trees, their forms twisted, their eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. They moved with purpose, circling the clearing like predators. "Ilara, stay close," Kale warned, his voice sharp. "Do not move. Do not speak unless I tell you to." She nodded, clutching her pendant. Kale could feel her courage, but he also sensed the fear beneath it. She did not understand the full danger they faced, yet she did not falter, and that made him both proud and terrified. The intruder stepped forward, his hood falling back to reveal a pale, cruel face. "Ah, Kale," he said, his voice echoing through the clearing. "Still playing the hero? Still hiding behind your power? But the child, she cannot be ignored. The pendant calls to those who belong to it." Kale's grip on his sword tightened.
"You will not touch her," he growled. "Not now."
"Not ever."
The intruder laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Kale's spine. "You cannot hide from the past, Lycan King."
The bloodline always answers. The magic always calls. And now it calls to her. With a flick of his hand, the intruder sent a wave of dark energy toward them. Kale reacted instantly, slashing the air with his sword. The energy shattered against the blade, sparks flying. The wolf within him growled low in his throat, restless and wild. He could feel the magic in the clearing responding to his presence, the stones pulsing faintly under his feet. "Ilara, stay behind me!" he shouted. The girl did as she was told, but she did not hide. Her eyes were fixed on the intruder, wide and unwavering. Kale felt a pang of admiration mixed with fear. She was brave, too brave, but her courage gave him strength. The intruder advanced, summoning more shadows. They moved like living things, curling around the edges of the clearing, trying to close in. Kale's sword flashed in the moonlight, cutting through the darkness, but for every shadow he struck down, two more appeared. He realized then that this was no ordinary attack. This was a test, a reckoning. "Ilara," he said, his voice softer now. "The pendant is more than a trinket. It is tied to magic older than this forest. You must trust it, and trust me." She looked at him, her small hands clutching the pendant. "I trust you," she said simply. Kale's heart clenched. Trust. It had been so long since anyone had trusted him. He felt a strange warmth, a flicker of hope. But there was no time for sentiment. The intruder was closing in, and the shadows were growing stronger. Kale took a deep breath and let the wolf within him stir. His body shifted slightly, not fully transforming, but enough to give him strength and speed beyond human limits. The golden glow of his eyes intensified, and the shadows hesitated. They could sense his power, his determination to protect the child. "You will not harm her," Kale said again, his voice like steel. "I swear it," the intruder's face twisted in anger. "You cannot stop what is coming," he hissed. "A magic will decide!" And then the pendant around Alara's neck began to glow. The silver crescent pulsed with light, faint at first, then brighter. Kyle felt it against his chest as well. The magic was awakening. It was responding to her presence, to their combined strength, to the bond forming between them. Alara, focus on the pendant, Kale commanded. It will protect you. Let it guide you. The girl closed her eyes and held the pendant tightly. The glow intensified, and a wave of energy swept through the clearing. The shadows screamed and recoiled, unable to penetrate the protective barrier forming around them. The intruder hissed, stepping back, clearly unprepared for this power. Kale felt a surge of hope, breath. The pendant was not just a memory or a relic. It was a shield, a connection, and perhaps a key to defeating the darkness that had returned from his past. But as the glow reached its peak, Kale sensed something unexpected. The magic was not entirely under control. It was alive, wild, and hungry. The power pulsed through the clearing, and Kale realized that while it could protect them, it could also attract greater dangers if misused. Alara, he said urgently, you must be careful. The pendant can do many things, but it is not invincible. We must leave this place before more come. She nodded, opening her eyes.
I can feel it, she said.
It's strong, but it wants to do good. Kale's chest tightened. She understood more than she realized. The bond they shared with the pendant was growing, and with it the potential for both salvation and danger. He had to guide her, protect her, and teach her to harness the power before it was too late. The intruder stepped back into the shadows, his face twisted in fury. This is not over, Kale, he said.
The bloodline will answer! The pendant will call again! And next time, you will not be able to protect her.
KL did not respond.
He knew the fight was far from over. The intruder would return, and with him, the shadows, the curses, and the old magic that had haunted Kale for centuries. He turned to Alara, who looked at him with wide eyes. We need to go, he said. There is a place where you will be safe, at least for now. She nodded, trusting him completely. Kale felt a flicker of warmth in his chest. Trust, courage, and hope. These were things he had long thought lost. And yet here they were, shining in the heart of a small child who carried the legacy of her mother, and perhaps a chance for his own redemption. They left the clearing, moving carefully through the forest. The night seemed quieter now, but Kale knew better. The shadows were still watching, waiting for the moment to strike. And the intruder's warning echoed in his mind. The bloodline will answer! The pendant will call again. Kale's golden eyes scanned the forest. He knew the next encounter would be even more dangerous. The magic was awakening, the past was arising, and the forces aligned against them were growing stronger. He had to be ready, for himself, for Alara, and for the destiny that was waiting in the shadows. And as the moon rose higher, casting silver light across the forest, Kale felt the first true stirrings of hope in centuries. The pendant's magic had awakened not only protection, but a bond, a connection that could change everything. But he also knew that the reckoning was only beginning. The night was far from over. The forest held its breath. And in the distance something moved, unseen but powerful, waiting for the right moment to strike. Kale tightened his grip on his sword and glanced at Alara. Whatever came next, he would face it. He would protect her. He would fight, and he would not fail. This time, The forest was quiet, but Kale could feel the tension lingering like a thick fog.
The intruder had disappeared into the shadows, but Kale knew better than to believe the danger was over. The pendant pulsed faintly against his chest, and he could feel Alara's connection to it strengthening.
Together they carried a magic older than the forest, older than the mountains themselves, a power that had once shaped kingdoms and broken hearts.
Elara! Kyle!
His voice low and steady.
We must keep moving. There is a place where we can find safety.
And answers. The girl nodded, clutching her pendant. Her small hand brushed against his, and for a moment Kale felt something he had not felt in centuries. A flicker of warmth, of trust, of hope. It was fragile, yet it anchored him, reminding him that even the darkest nights could lead to dawn. They moved carefully through the forest, the shadows seeming to watch them, to follow their every step. Kael's senses were alert, every nerve on edge.
He had faced countless dangers in his long life, but the combination of the intruder's magic, the pendant's awakening, and the child's presence made his heart pound in a way it had not in centuries.
Finally, they reached a hidden glade, a place of calm amid the forest's restless energy. A small stream trickled through the center, and moonlight reflected on the water like scattered silver. Kael gestured for Alara to sit by the edge, and she did, her eyes wide and curious, though fatigue showed in the slight slump of her shoulders. Rest for a moment, Kael said.
We cannot fight this battle without strength.
Alara looked up at him. Will the intruder come again? She asked softly. Kael's jaw tightened. He will, Bert.
And so will others. The pendant's power attracts those who wish to use it, to control it.
But we will not let them.
She nodded, clutching her pendant.
Then I want to help.
I want to be brave, like you. Kael felt a pang in his chest. The child did not fully understand the danger she faced, but her courage and trust reminded him of someone he had once loved. Mira. Her presence now mirrored in her daughter brought memories of warmth and loss that had haunted him for centuries. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from pain, but he also knew that courage came with risk.
You already are brave, Kael said gently. But bravery alone is not enough.
You must trust the magic, and trust me. Elara nodded solemnly. I trust you. Kael's chest tightened at her words. Trust. It was something he had long abandoned, hiding behind fear, solitude, and the weight of his curse. Yet here it was, offered freely by a child who had every right to be afraid. He felt a spark of something unfamiliar. Hope, perhaps, or the faint beginnings of redemption. Before he could speak further, the shadows stirred. The intruder had returned, and he was not alone. Figures emerged from the darkened trees, their forms twisted by magic, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. They moved with purpose, circling the glade, drawn to the pendant's awakening power. Kael stepped in front of Elara, placing himself between her and the approaching threat. His golden eyes flared, reflecting the moonlight, and the wolf within him stirred, eager to protect. He did not fully transform, but his presence radiated power, warning the intruder in the shadows that he would not yield. You cannot hide from destiny, Kael, the intruder said, stepping into the moonlight. His pale face was twisted with anger and greed. The pendant will answer, and the bloodline will pay. Your time is over. Kale's grip tightened on his sword. I will not let you harm her, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Bird. Not now. Not ever. Inspiration. The intruder laughed, a hollow sound that echoed through the glade. We shall see, he hissed, summoning dark energy that twisted and warped the air around him. Shadows stretched like living fingers, reaching for the pendant, for Alara, for Kale himself. Kale's wolf senses flared, and he felt the magic of the pendant pulsing stronger than ever. Bert. He realized then that this battle would not be won by strength alone. The pendant's power combined with Alara's courage and his own will could turn the tide, but only if they acted together. Alara, Cal said urgently, focus on the pendant. Let it guide you. Do not fear its power. Together, we can protect it. Inspiration. The girl closed her eyes and held the pendant tightly. A radiant light spread from it, glowing silver and brightening the glade. The shadows recoiled, shrieking as the magic pushed back against the darkness. Kale felt the energy course through him, strengthening his body, sharpening his senses, and calming the restless wolf within. Inspiration. The intruder hissed in frustration. No. Brr. This cannot be, he shouted, sending waves of dark energy toward them. Kael met each attack with precision, cutting through the darkness with his sword, his movements both graceful and deadly. Brr. The pendant's light pulsed in rhythm with Alara's heartbeat, creating a protective barrier that repelled the intruder's magic. Keep focus! Kael shouted to Alara. Do not let fear guide you. She nodded, her face determined. The bond between them strengthened as their combined courage and the pendant's power created a force even the intruder could not overcome. Inspiration. Slowly, inch by inch, the shadows began to retreat. The intruder stepped back, his expression dark with anger and disbelief. Brr.
Kale took a deep breath, letting the wolf within settle. It is over, he said, though he knew the intruder might return.
Inspiration.
For now. The intruder's face twisted in fury. You may have won today, Kale, but the magic will not rest.
Bert. The bloodline will answer and the shadows will rise again. With a final hiss, he vanished into the darkness, leaving only silence behind. Brr. Kale lowered his sword and looked at Alara. She was breathing heavily, her small body trembling, but her eyes were bright with courage. Bear. He felt a swell of pride and warmth, the first genuine connection he had felt in centuries. You were remarkable, Kael said softly, brave and strong. You have helped save more than you realize. Alara smiled faintly. We did it together, she said. You protected me and I helped too. Kael nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Together they had faced the darkness, and together they had survived. The bond between them was no longer fragile. It was real, strong, and full of promise. For the first time in centuries, Kael felt the weight of his curse lighten. The pendant's magic had not only protected them, but it had reminded him that trust, courage, and hope could still exist. Inspiration. And perhaps even a Lycan king could find redemption. He looked at the moon, high and silver in the sky. Brr. It cast light across the glade, illuminating the path forward. The night had been long, filled with danger and shadows, but it had also revealed something Kael had thought lost. The possibility of connection, of love, of a future that was not bound by fear and solitude. Bear. Alara, he said, his voice gentle. The magic of the pendant is strong, but it is also fragile. You must always remember that, Brr. Use it wisely, and it will guide you. She nodded, her eyes bright. Inspiration. I will, she promised. Kale felt a flicker of warmth in his chest, a light he had not felt for centuries. It was fragile, yes, but it was hope. And hope was stronger than any shadow, any curse, any fear. The forest around them was quiet now, the shadows withdrawn, and the moonlight shimmered across the clearing. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the centuries of sorrow and isolation begin to lift. Inspiration. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future that was not ruled by loss or fear. He glanced at Alara, her small hand brushing against hers. The bond they shared was no longer just of protection. It was trust, connection, and perhaps, in the fullness of time, love, inspiration. Not the fleeting kind, but a deep, abiding care that could heal the wounds of centuries. "Come," Kyle said at last. Inspiration.
We will return to the kingdom. There are answers to find and a future to protect.
The past may linger, but we will face it together. Alara smiled, her eyes bright with hope. Breaths. Together they walked from the glade, leaving the shadows behind, the pendant glowing softly between them, a symbol of their courage, their bond, and the promise of redemption. The night was ending, but the story was far from over. Inspiration. The pendant would continue to hum, a reminder of magic, destiny, and the power of trust and courage. Kale had faced the darkness of the past, and in doing so he had discovered something even stronger. The possibility of a future filled with light, hope, and connection. As they disappeared into the forest, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a promise that even in the darkest night, the moon would rise, and hearts, no matter how burdened by time or curse, could find redemption.